Good morning. Welcome to my Saturday morning coffee show. It's a little spontaneous this morning. It's cold. Have you noticed how cold it is? I thought it's cold. I'll get in the studio, put the lights on, warm myself up. And so I have. That's what I'm doing. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have, I don't know whether you're enjoying all this sort of nonsense that we're doing at the moment, but we're just doing our best to keep people entertained during the cold winter. And it is cold. It's November the 5th. It's Bonfire Night. Are you going out to celebrate Bonfire Night, doing anything exciting? I remember years and years ago, some time ago, I used to go to the Redoubt Fortress on a regular basis in Eastbourne, down on the south coast. That's another provincial seaside town, and it used to be at some time full of retired people. But now I think it's a vibrant and exciting place, just as Worthing has become. By the way, I've got my coffee here. Cheers, everybody. Morning coffee. Yes, and I used to go down there, and I always noticed that once you get past Halloween, it was always a lot colder. And the other night, I noticed just how cold it was. In fact, it was freezing. And I thought, yes, here we are. We're finally in winter. Has autumn passed? I don't know when does autumn finish? And when does winter start? Is there an actual date or sort of period? To me, it's when it gets cold, and November the 5th is always cold. I remember that there was only one time in the sort of 10 years that I used to entertain at the Redoubt Fortress that it was reasonably mild. Now, on November the 5th, of course, celebrating the something that didn't happen, I suppose, isn't it? That the Houses of Parliament didn't get blown up, and that Guy Fawkes is taken away and burnt at the stake, and we take the effigies. And of course, in Lewes, the other lovely place in East Sussex that does fireworks and bonfire night in a huge way, where they. I don't know whether they still do this. I know they have a parade. I've never actually been to it because parking, trying to get your car in there, people would park all over the place. But they used to roll barrels of tar down the street. Now, things like that happened in Worthing. Near to where I am, there's a pub where the Bonfire Boys, apparently, bunch of reprobates, used to gather and plan quite some dodgy things, I think, during this time of the year. And it used to be, where the Bonfire Boys, you don't want to get on the wrong side of them. So Lewes, they do it. But in Eastbourne, I would be down there at the Redoubt Fortress, fire eating, juggling, unicycling, lying on a bed of nails, back in the old days, before I lost my eye. So it must have been sort of in the 90s, I suppose. And now I thought I've been looking through my pictures. I've been looking through my photographs of times when I used to do all this sort of nonsense, because it's all very well talking about it. But the problem is I never really took any pictures. People would take pictures of me and they would send them in, which was very nice and very kind. But I would, of course, I'm performing, so I couldn't actually go, oh, excuse me, do you mind just taking a photograph of me? It's very kind of you. I'll just pose like this. But there's millions of photographs of me in people's albums, or probably in envelopes that have come back from Kodak or places where they triple print. Do you remember them? Triple print, they were a good bunch. And people would, probably look at them and go, look at that bald bloke doing some strange things. So I thought it would be quite fun to, let's have a look, see if, I've got a number of them here and I will show you. Now, I don't have, unfortunately, very many fire-eating photos. I have got one where I'm blowing this massive, great big fire, and I was looking around it in my files, blowing this fire, and I couldn't see it. So this is the nearest. I'll put my webcam on here. So this is the nearest I've got, really, to me blowing fire in a very wacky and tartan outfit. I can't remember where that was. This isn't at the Redoubt Fortress. But in my hand, I've got juggling clubs. I don't know if you can see that. So that was that. Here's another one from clearly the same place. And I've got razor-sharp knives. Now, if you look very carefully, you'll see... I just moved my microphone so you can hear me better. You'll see there's a bloke down here, a guy lying down, who I'm about to juggle these razor-sharp knives over. And I do that. Only, unfortunately, again, I haven't got the picture to prove that, which is a shame. Some of the crazy things that I don't know if you can see that there. Me, look, hang on, let's do it this way. I would do a lot of stilt walking. There's me without the glasses, with two eyes on my stilts. I think, if I remember rightly, that is in Brentwood in Essex. I think that's in Essex. Yeah, crazy stuff. What else have we got? I used to do a lot of mime. I trained in mime, as you know. Regular viewers will know. Trained in mime. Here is me at some cafe pretending to sit on a chair, and yeah, I know I look a bit weird. And a lovely little band behind me. They look nice and having a jolly old time. And this one here, lovely picture. Me on my ball. Let's do this over here. See if that makes. No, you can't really see it there. I'll have to bend it a bit. No, go back to the other. Go back to the other one. Me on my ball. That ball broke in the end. I had to buy another one. Juggling 3 clubs there. No glasses. I can't think where that is. That might. I don't know. Lots of different places. It might be. I'm just trying to think now. It was. I did a number of these things at Christmas time. There was a number of outdoor events, and it's definitely a Christmas one. It might be Wokingham, in Wokingham High Street, which is in Surrey, I think. Anyway, I just thought I'd share those because I often mention, or I have been mentioning, about entertaining out and about. And yes, November the 5th. So it's cold. And yesterday I lit the fire for the very first time in the front room, and we made a video, Julia and I, in the English couple, and we're sitting there by the fire. And I had that fire. Oh, I need another slurp of coffee. I had that fire on all day, very low. We went out a couple of times, and I just left it on, and it made, cool, what a difference it did. Have you got a wood-burning stove, a wood-burning fire, an open fire? Do you use anything like that? How are you finding it? When have you lit your fire? When do you have a thing? Some people say, do you know, I never light the fire until December the 1st. Some people have a regimented thing, or they don't turn the central heating up. Now, of course, we're in this rather awful cost of living crisis, so who knows how it's going to be? And are you someone who's going to be slightly wary of the bills? Are you in debt? Do let me know. Richard@Vobes.com. Share and enjoy, as they say in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Let us know. If you've got a wood-burning stove, send me a picture. We'll show your wood-burning stove. I'll try and remember in the next show to show you a picture of the wood-burning stove, just so that you have a moment where you can heat up for free on the internet. Now, I know that there are some people. Do you do this? Some people have been to those to the YouTube channels in which they have a blazing fire, don't they? And they put them on the telly. Psychologically, does that work? Does it make you feel warm? I don't know. I don't know if it would make me feel warm. Having a real fire and then seeing one on a 2D telly probably wouldn't. But if you haven't got a fire, real fire, then maybe it was. Of course, I like my Essie, and that keeps me warm. But I will resist. The thing is, you don't want to use up the fuel. Don't want to spend too much if you haven't got the money coming in. So I'll probably not light my fire. I'll put on a big jumper or put on a big coat and get myself nice and warm. That's what I tend to do. Whoopsie daisy. I didn't expect that. Sorry. I've got this little control panel here. Can I show you it? Hang on, I have to come out of this to do that. There we are. Look, I have this. It's very clever. This Steam Deck control panel. I don't really understand it fully, and I mentioned before I have all these gizmos on the desk in order to make this work. Because I'm trying to do this as if I'm recording it live, just to give it a different feel, so you get the mistakes and everything, so it's not too slick. I just thought that would be quite fun. You let me know if you think it's a load of old rubbish. Well, I'm sure you will. People do. I don't care. Right, so now let's see if I can press this button again and get into there without the jingle suddenly popping up. Did you like that jingle? Made that this morning. Working on all this, trying to make this a little bit slicker and a bit more fun, but it will take time. And I know Joe said, I want some music. I want some lovely music in the background and a proper title sequence. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to... Give us a chance, for goodness sake. Right, okay. So now, I've earlier this year, I switched from one mechanism to a different mechanism, and I want to tell you all about it. I don't know whether you remember. I did make a video about it, but I want to tell you how well or not that I'm getting on with it. Let's have a look. Do you know, I've been using one of these double-edged razors now for about 6 months. And I thought it was about time I told you whether I got on with it or not. In the past, I've used these things. And as you know, not only do I need to shave here, but I have to shave all over the top of my head. Now, naturally, I started going bald when I was about 18, and this part of my head started to lose the hair, and then there was a protrusion, well, both, of hair coming out there. So I've been sort of keeping my hair relatively short because I didn't want to have a silly old bald patch for such a long time. And it became necessary at one point to take off all my hair when I made a children's television series in the 90s. And then from then I stayed bald, and I've enjoyed it ever since. It's been obviously my identity since then, which is great. However, up until, as I say, 6 months ago, I've been using these, and they're okay. They do a very close shave, and they can, on many occasions, cut and lacerate, often when I'm in a hurry. I turned to the double-edged old-fashioned razor with the safety razor. Now these are, let me show you, these are wrapped up. You'll recognize them if I can get the perishing thing out without slicing my hand off. Take it out its packet like this. These things, these ones have gone a bit glued. They're in a wax piece of paper to, I suppose, to prevent you from cutting yourself. And what you do is you place these within the razor itself. Now, you may have seen this. You may have a member of the family who does this. You may do it yourself, or you may, as I say, have I'll repeat myself, member of the family that does it. There we go. They fit in here like this. I get probably 2 to 3 shaves out of that. Bearing in mind, I'm shaving my face and my head, so that's 6 shaves, I suppose, if you were doing just your chin. And I use a hot water boat. I mop up my face. I've actually done it this morning because I did it earlier, and then I thought this would be a good feature to talk about. I have one of these brushes, and you can use all this sort of specialised soap and things like that. I don't bother. I've started that. That was about £10 to do that. In the end, I found that ordinary soap does it very well. Get yourself all lathered up like this. Important to get your face nice and warm. Of course, use the razor and all of that. Now, I confess, I don't know whether it's the blades I'm using or this particular shape of razor. It's not as close as, now, of course, I wouldn't normally do this with my cravat and shirt and waistcoat on, but I didn't want to be sort of bare-skinned on the show. Don't want to get rid of your sensibilities. Yes, not as shape. So sometimes I do have a couple of these that on those very difficult little places, up by the nose and on the ears, where I can just take the remainder out with these. So these are useful, but I don't buy them in the huge quantity that I used to buy them. And I'm actually saving money. It is far cheaper to have the double-edged blades of safety razors. There we go. Than that. So I just thought I'd update you. Yes, these are very good. I found them. Do you use them? Have you tried them? Have you got rid of them? I would like, and I'm so tempted at some point to get a cutthroat razor, the old and try that. What do you think?
Well, I filmed that the other day, and this morning I haven't had a chance to shave, actually. So I probably got a little bit more growth on it. But there we are. That's an update on how I was getting on with the razor. And has anyone actually tried one of those cutthroats? And what do you think? I don't know about the top of my head going around there. The double-edged safety razor is great, actually. You would think it might be more lethal than the plastic disposables. But actually, I find I cut myself up. I think the plastic disposable razors are actually a little bit sharper, that's true, than the double edge. But I find I cut myself a lot less with those things. So that's my recommendation. If you've not given it a try, do. I'm going to try some new blades because I bought, it's so economical as well. I bought 100 blades, I think, for something like £6. Well, do you think how many of the plastic disposable ones you get for £6? They're usually about £2 something each. So, and you get 10 in those, but I get 100 blades for about £6.50. So I thought that was pretty good. So that's been very successful. So there we go. Right, it is time now for a email. Had this in. This is from Gary from the Bursledon Mill, and he says, Richard, your blackberry and apple pie looked amazing. And you remember we had a look at that in the last show. He said, you said any recipes out there if you'd like to try. He says, I have a 50-50 bread recipe. I call it the Miller's No Measure Half Wholemeal Bread. Well, I certainly would like to try that. I'll send it over if you like. Looking forward to the ukulele music. Absolutely, so am I. I'd like in the future to get and learn to play, but like my speedboat and trial bike, it's on the back burner. But with the instrument, it's a little smaller and maybe could do something. You never know unless you give it a try. And that is, as I say, from Gary. Yes, you should give it a go. I didn't know you had a speedboat and, what was that you said? Let me just have another look. A speedboat and trial bike. Be interesting to have a look at your speedboat. Maybe we could come over and have a go. Could you take us out? Not in the winter, not when it's cold. Be lovely to go and have a go on the speedboat. You'd like to see that, wouldn't you? The Vobes at the helm of a speedboat. Round down there on the Solent. Be interesting. I remember I used to know a bloke actually who was into this speedboat. I forget what you call it now. It was a sort of speedboat racing thing down there. Down in Dorset, he used to do. It was a huge thing, and he used to be very into that. Anyway, that was years ago. Sorry, you just suddenly reminded me of something that I used to do many, many years ago. Anyway, right. Thank you very much. If you want to send an email, richard@vobes.com. I need a little jingle that comes up with it so that you can tell exactly what it is. I wanted to tell you also today, what book am I reading? What book? Again, I need another little sort of jingle that goes, hang on a minute, I think I can do this. I don't know if this will work. I've got this desk that does crazy thing. Hang on. What book are you reading today, Mr. Vobes? That kind of thing. This is very reminiscent of the old Vobe show I used to do as a podcast many, many years ago. This nutty, crazy sort of stuff. And I thought this should actually be called something like the Homemade Television Programme. You know, it's a bit homemade, isn't it? Sort of a bit Heath Robinson. Do you know Heath Robinson? Remember him? Nice bloke, as I recall. Flat cat bloke, and he had a very big stomach. No, I'm making that bit up. But no, Heath Robinson. I mentioned that to the lovely Julia, who, of course, I love and adore. And she said, what? Who? What? We have a lot of those conversations. She'll mention some stuff that's a bit more modern and trendy, and I'll go, sorry, what? Who? I don't understand. So we have a lot of good fun, those conversations in which we chat to one another about, do you know about this? No idea. Inform me. I need to know. We do have a laugh. I'm sorry she's not in today's show, but we'll get her in very soon. So this is that section that goes, what book are you reading today, Mr. Vobes? And the book reading today is this, Justice for Joan, it's called, by Martin Knight. And it's the story, it's the true story, it's the investigation of Joan Woodhouse, who was murdered in 1948 at Box Corpse, corpse is a dead body. Cops is there was a corpse in the copse. That's where it gets a bit confusing. There was a corpse in a copse. Change the letters round and you slightly confuse everybody. Yes, at Box Copse. Yes, that's it. Box Copse. A corpse at Box Copse in Arundel Park, in the grounds of Arundel Castle, 1948. Now, many of the old Sussex murder books that you get, and probably real true crimes in England. It's a story of a crime, a murder that was committed and unsolved, one of those unsolved crimes, and it's absolutely gripping. I'm almost halfway through now, and Ellie, who came in the other day,
who ran the Dolphin Pub, she said she'd been reading this. It was absolutely amazing. She lent me this copy. And Ellie, I'm thoroughly enjoying it, by the way. If it's one of those things, isn't it, that people used to sit down of a Sunday afternoon. I think it describes it even here at the beginning. It's one of those things that the British used to love. I don't know if the Americans or other nationalities are the same, but it is one of those things. You used to sit down and we used to love, and I think we still do, which is why there's so many television programs and films about it, a good murder. Isn't it strange how we can revel in, there we are in the safety and the comfort of our homes, sitting there by the fire with a nice cup of tea and some biscuits and all that kind of malarkey, and we can pick up the old News of the World. There's no longer, is defunct News of the World now, but that newspaper that used to have all the salacious stories in, we used to love all of that. That was a sort of very, very much a British thing. But I imagine other people would do it with their, with the different type of paper. That the News of the World, people would sit down there with the salacious gossip and all of that, and read a good murder. And everybody loved that, from the acid bath murderer to Dr. Crippen, and all of these sort of things. Well, this is one of those stories that went on and on and on because it was unsolved. There was a suspect, and nobody really knows whether it's him. And apparently, Martin Knight gets to the point where he lays everything down. But for some reason, the police did not have enough evidence to take this particular chap, I believe his name was Thomas Spilwell, if I've got that right, to court. Now, funny enough, he lived in a house just down in Offham, called, I forget what it's called. It's a fascinating little house. I won't mention it. It's in the book. And I walked that way in one of my videos, a year or so ago, and I went past this house. It's buried in the middle of nowhere. You go and suddenly, there's a house here down by the River Arun, and it's sort of buried at the bottom of the hill, and then you can clamber up and get round, not realising it potentially could have been, and it's I don't know whether he got off, this bloke, and he lived a blameless life, it says. So, I can't say he did it or didn't do it, but he was a suspect. But it's, because it was unsolved, maybe he did it. I don't know. I haven't got that far yet. But I went past his house and you think, ooh. Anyway, Joan Woodhouse, I'm not explaining this very well. Joan Woodhouse was a Yorkshire lass who was living in London, a Christian, very much into a librarian, very much into God and religion and all of that nonsense. And she was going to go in 1948 up to Yorkshire to see her family, but she knew Arundel very well and had gone down there many times, and she knew this secluded place. And apparently she, on a whim, because it was the time of the Olympic Games that we hosted in London, and it was very, very busy, and it was very, very hot, extraordinarily hot, she went down to Arundel first, and they believe, I think the family believe, that she'd gone down there, she went to a place, she loved sunbathing, but instead of going to the beaches where the world and his brother would have been on a hot sunny day, she went to this copse at a secluded area, and she was doing a bit of sunbathing, and then she was going to get on, I think the intention was she was going to get back on the train and go back up to Burnley. Weirdly, she carried two heavy coats, which was never really... the author says, I don't know why she was carrying these two heavy coats on a weekend that was extremely warm. Anyway, she's there, she's sunbathing. Somebody comes over, discovers her, and decides to strangle her and rape her. In a rather nasty and gruesome way. And the story unfolds, but it's, if you're into the Sussex area and you're interested in the story, this is a fantastic book. I couldn't put it down. It was glued to my hand. No. I couldn't put it down because it was fascinating. And the author, I have to say, tells the story incrementally, and you can see how incompetent the police are back then. It's 1948, so, some time ago, just after, it's about 70 years ago, isn't it? And you can see how, as the author sort of unlays it, and the family are getting on to the policeman, to the point that the first inspector, the first policeman who's doing this, he decides that he can't solve it and retires. And so it's all very interesting. And then they hire a private detective. That's the point where I am at. I don't know any more than that, but the story is unfolding. It's gripping. So if you're interested if you're looking for something for the winter nights to be curled up by the fire, you like a good murder, I can recommend this. I've been reading a lot of farming books recently, and I'll tell you some more about those. But something a bit different. I thought I might go back on the trail of the murder in a video. That would be quite interesting, because I know that area quite well. Obviously, I don't want to get strangled myself. Nobody wants to be strangled, do they? Absolutely not. Anyway, so that was that. Right, time is ticking on, isn't it? Before we go, something I wanted to have a look at was... now, I've got a jingle for this. Unfortunately, this jingle, or rather the sting, was made up for the afternoon tea and not the coffee morning. So ignore it, but it will take us on to the next little item. England at war. So there we were in 1948, and poor Joan Woodhouse gets strangled. But before that, of course, England was at war. And I like this because it's all about England and Englishness. And this is what this show really is, trying to sort of represent a bit of English. You know, I was walking down the town the other day. I live in Worthing in West Sussex, which is a provincial seaside town. And I was aware that, we've just had this statistic from the National Statistics Centre, whatever they call themselves, the Office of National Statistics, which says that there's an inordinate amount of people who live in this country now who were not born in this country. I think it was 1 in 6 or something. It was or 2 in 6. I can't remember. Not 2 in 6 as in 2 shillings and sixpence. Not that. No. But a remarkably large number of people now who were not sort of what should we say, indigenous? Is that the right word? Not native, not pucker native people. Now, that's just interesting, okay? I'm not going to put on a personal thing about it, but as I was walking along, and I was aware that actually, yeah, we do have a lot of different nationals in here. Now, whether they consider themselves English or British or whatever they do, I don't know. But you see shops now, that sort of continental shops and barber shops, which are not English shops anymore, and you see all this, and you think the nature of England is changing. Which, in some ways I think is a shame, because I think every nation should be proud of their nation. It makes travelling fascinating. If you go to some other country and you see how they live and how they live their lives, it's lovely, isn't it? I think that's absolutely brilliant. You could come back with souvenirs and you think, oh, it was wonderful. I saw how this particular country and how their customs and their traditions. But if everybody gets all mished up and matched up, there's almost no point in travelling, although, the landscape is there to look at. But it's just a bit weird, It's lovely if people come over to say, how do the English live? And they get to see how the English live. And I think that is a lovely notion. I feel that we're losing that somewhat. I don't know how you feel about that. You can tell me, answers on a postcard, richard@vobes.com, via the email. Anyway, I was walking down there and I thought, you know what? There's the one thing that, even though we hear about them, the illegal migrants coming over in the boats and being put up in hotels and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, well, even if there is, as Suella Braverman says, it's an invasion, which I think it is a bit of an invasion personally, but that's my own personal view. You're welcome to disagree. I thought the one thing they can't take away from me, even if they, invade the land and they set up shop and all of this, and they try, and I know that there's a sort of section of society that are desperately trying to erase history and trying to get us behave very differently and all of that. But the one thing they can't take away from people like me is they can't take away my Englishness, because I am English. I am born and bred in England, and I'm English through and through. And I love that. And that's the one thing. I think, they want to take that from me, but they can't. You can't change somebody's nationality if that's who they are. And that's, something to hold on to. And it reminds me of the wartime, when we had that wartime spirit, when most people were... if you were English, Welsh, Scottish, whatever, the British nation were made up of those independent nations. And here in England, we were desperately trying to save our country and our nation and our customs and our traditions from the foe that was Nazi Germany. And as we know that they were coming around. And so I find it's a fascinating time when England really did pull together and do some stuff. Now, we're looking at photographs from that period. So here's my first photograph, which I don't know which coast this is, But as we were preparing for war in 1939, I think this is absolutely fascinating that there we were filling up sandbags. Look at that, sandbags on all over the coast, in quarries and whatever. The British public got together, and you can see them filling up the sandbags, which were going to be put up against buildings and around sort of anti-aircraft guns and things like that. Absolutely brilliant. People, it wasn't just a government or an outpost of the government doing this. Everybody got involved. Everybody got in, pulling together. And here is another picture of a little baby who clearly was not pulling together, sleeping with all those gas mask bags. I just absolutely love that as a picture. I think it's marvelous, isn't it? It's uncaring, and that little girl is what, 6 months, potentially up to 8 months, maybe a year. I wonder where that person is now. If it's you and you've been watching the show, do get in touch. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Yes, and I'll be looking at more of this wartime stuff in greater detail as I read more about it and understand it and consume it. Because for me, it's a time when a country, and whatever country you're in, whatever nationality you are, I think it's great when a country all pulls together for themselves. Not in any nasty way or anything. We were just all pulling together, and people got involved. And I think that's to be applauded. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Morning coffee with Richard Vobes. But that's it for today. And I look forward to seeing you in the afternoon next week with my afternoon show, hopefully with the lovely Julia. Until the next time, bye-bye.